Let's go line by line. And Big Tones, let's talk about goalkeeper. Matt Turner didn't play well against Colombia. Thought maybe Ethan Horvath was going to get the start against Brazil. He didn't. And Matt Turner made a mistake to lead to the Brazilians' first goal and only goal, but then he ended up having a hell of a game on the goalkeeping side of things. Not as a playmaking goalkeeper, but just as a goalkeeper himself. 11 saves, the most saves by a goalkeeper since Tim Howard set the record for the World Cup in 2014. How are you feeling about the goalkeeper position? Matt Turner, the clear number one for you, but I feel a little bad for Ethan Horvath. Didn't really get the chance, per se.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, Jimmy. I think Matt Turner's been Greg's guy, right? I mean, he's been steadfast with playing Matt, and the big concern coming in, obviously, like a lot of these guys, is form. And from a goalkeeper standpoint, I think you need rhythm. You need to be in games. Is 2 games now leading into this good enough? It's going to have to be, because he's going to play throughout the Copa America. The one thing about the mistake, and I've been critical of the mistake, I should follow it up with, I always look at how guys react after the mistakes, right? Because if you saw his reaction when the ball went in, he slammed both hands on the ground. He clearly was frustrated, but then he was able to have a good game, right? And goalkeepers, just imagine like a striker who misses Charlie 1 on the line. Like, you have to be able to forget about it. And if you don't, those are the guys that can't compete at the highest level. So, look, that's the guy that we're going to roll with. Our hope is that he's a shot stopper for me. So hopefully he's good in that area and simplifies things with the ball. But again, I don't think any real surprise here, the way it's all played out from a goalkeeping standpoint.
Chuck, I'm going to throw it to you, but I want to get Tones' thoughts on this too. How do we work around the fact that Matt Turner has terrible feet? Like, how do we put the team in a situation where we're not relying on him to be a playmaker from that particular spot? I know that might go against some of the methods that Greg wants to have in place, but in the best interest of the team, so that we don't give up any more sloppy goals when the tournament starts, we got to figure out a solution to what Tony says, to simplify things.
Well, Jimmy, I would go back to that build out where in the 75th or 77th minute, where the U.S. were able to, arguably their best moment from building out of the back, go from Tim Ream to, I think it went to Anthony Robinson, back to Tim Ream, across. All of that whole passing sequence didn't go through Matt Turner at all. Matt Turner stayed in his 6-yard box. So they avoided using Matt Turner in this complicated build out. And it was super successful to get to the opposite side. And then it came back to Tim Ream, who was able to get into the attacking half. So I think from that standpoint, it's very easy to build out of the back without using your keeper. That's one. You don't need your keeper to build out of the back, other than getting that initial pass and just being, maybe it's a distraction, as simple as being a decoy, but you don't need to use your keeper. That's one. 2, have it be simple. Only go back to your keeper when you need to. And in that instance, that means your keeper is not under immense pressure. You're not within 10 yards from your keeper where all of a sudden you panic and your only option is to go back to your keeper, which then he has maybe one option, maybe, other than booting it long. So I think it's very easy to incorporate a system where you say, we want to keep the ball, we want to build out of the back, but we only need use our keeper in an emergency. And that doesn't mean an emergency within 10 yards on a hospital ball. It's, all right, we switched the ball, and now we don't really necessarily like the options, and the keeper is the safe option to use to reset. And then we build up again, and the keeper is not under pressure. So ultimately, that's the only way to protect your keeper, who's not great with his feet. And guess what? Turner's never going to be great with his feet. Ederson and Alisson, they use their feet, and they're not. Ederson is probably the most exceptional keeper, but Alisson still makes mistakes. You don't feel completely confident when the ball's at his feet, but you only use your keeper when you need to. Other than that, I think we simplify it, and the U.S. has proven that they don't need Matt Turner to build out of the back.
Big Tones, I want to tee you up because I got to play with a bunch of goalkeepers, very good goalkeepers, but your feet were the best. I mean, you could ping a ball 60 yards. It didn't even look like you were trying, and I always marveled at it because I still can't do it. Even when I watched you and studied it, I couldn't hit it as sweet as you. So you're coming from a interesting perspective because you could pass out of the back and hit that long ball right on a dime. If I'm Bolivia and Panama, I kind of want to flip this. that's the only thing I would do is I try to siphon the pressure to go back to Matt Turner, and then I would run at him as hard as I possibly could and try to cut any of his options out. I mean, that's how I would prepare for us if you're trying to high press our team. And Bolivia and Panama, I wonder if they think that's a benefit to them as opposed to sitting back and absorbing and not putting pressure on arguably our most vulnerable passer of the ball. I don't know. Kind of, what do you do if you're Bolivia and Panama, and how do we address that?
I think you do. You do try and channel it there. So the first thing that comes to mind, and you guys would know this, that if the ball keeps going back to the goalkeeper, then guess what? We have a problem in our spacing ahead of the goalkeeper, right? We haven't taken up good spaces where we can build out of the back. The other thing when I watch Matt, and I've seen this time and time again, so I feel really comfortable saying it, if there are three options when he gets the ball, an easy option, a fairly difficult one, and a really hard one, I don't feel like he always picks the simplest option. It's like the one that he tried to play out, that's a tough ball to play into the midfield. I mean, Jimmy, you're a center back. You would have tried to play that ball into a midfield. You know how difficult it is. So,
and then you get absolutely
it's coming right back down
torn
your
to shreds by your midfielders being like, what the hell kind of ball are you trying to play here?
Yeah, and I'm glad you said just what you said, Jimmy, coming right back at you, because my thought was always when I gave the ball, unless it was a long ball, unless it was something long, if I gave somebody the ball, I always wanted to know that it wasn't coming back to me, that player had the next pass. So they were the intermediary to where I maybe would have wanted to go. And I just feel like he picks that one that's a little bit difficult, almost to say, okay, I can do this. And quite honestly, most people, including Matt Turner, 9 out of 10 times it works, right? But it's the one time that you get picked off against a Brazil or a Colombia or an Uruguay, teams of this nature that you're going to get buried on. So simplify it. If you got to go back to him, the first option, if you're really in danger, we know the easiest one, route one, go long, and then we could sit and argue about it all day long about how many guys were open. But at least the ball's not in the back of our net, so just in theory, I think pick the easiest pass, but I still would look at because the play we're talking about, the ball came out left and everyone made a big deal about Greg pointing backwards, right? And I don't know that he was pointing to play it back as much as he was pointing to position guys deeper. But if you look ahead of the ball, there's a moment in that screen where you can see 10 players on the screen. And the only other one that could have been open was Ricardo Pepi, who's out of the screen. There really aren't very many options. I think it was Anthony Robinson, right, that played it back to Tim, and then it went back, before Matt Turner played it forward. So just look at those things as we build out, because I still think that the number one problem, if we keep going back to him, is we don't have it right in front of him.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think the next point on this is confidence, Chuck, and I want to talk about this because there are times where we've all gone through it where sometimes you just don't want the ball. You're not you do want it, but you also are nervous that if I make another mistake. And that's where I think Matt Turner is right now, where it feels a little hot potato, like he can't get that thing off his foot fast enough. And even when he has it, he looks super uncomfortable. How do you work through that? I know what I used to do, which was just kind of like go out to the training field and just go over that same sequence of events over and over and over. So it felt very comfortable when the game happened. And I'm sure he's doing that.
Repetition for you, Jimmy.
Yeah, repetition was my solution, but you can sense that it's not just a Matt problem. Anytime they go back to him, you can see the body language of everybody else going, I don't know what kind of ball I'm going to get. And that can hurt us, right? Like Tony said, it's just one thing, and then all of a sudden we're out of the tournament. And
it's one thing when you're a keeper receiving the ball under no pressure. It's another when you're receiving the ball under immense pressure. And we're talking about full press from a team that has done a good job of closing down all the angles. And the only option the player has, a defender has, is to play back to your goalie. The only clear option. And that's when you know that when you're receiving it, you have a striker or a winger bearing down on you, and your first touch has to be perfect, unless you're just planning on hitting it first touch down the line, trying to play it into a channel. And I think for Matt Turner, he knows that Greg Berhalter expects him to take a touch and find an option. And when you have that in your head and things haven't gone well, that's when the panic happens. And because you're nervous and anxious about that, the rest of the team feeds off of that. And so they don't know how your first touch is going to be. Because if your first touch is a little shaky, you know that you either have to take a second touch quick or you're playing a forced pass. And so I would, again, go back to only give it to Matt Turner if you know he's going to have time. Otherwise, guess what? We're going back to get into the channel and have our strikers or our wingers be ready for that ball into the channel. And if you're playing Timothy Weah, he's exceptional at balls into the channel. So there has to be a trigger that as soon as it's going back to the keeper, everyone's anticipating a ball into the channel. And to go back to your repetition, have that be something that he knows exactly where he's trying to pinpoint that ball. All right, into this channel with this much pace, I know I'm going to give Timothy Weah or I'm going to give Christian Pulisic, who we've seen excel in Milan with the balls over the top. If our center forward is maybe occupying the two center backs or checks, I'm going to create a little space for our dynamic wingers to get in there and have a chance at it.
Yeah, there's no question this guy's an incredible shot stopper, but when he gets the ball at his feet, I'm nervous watching him. On TV, I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen here. I'm already feeling bad for him because it's probably not going to be the right decision. And even when he hits it out of bounds, you can see all the guys going like, crap, we just gave up a ball we didn't need to. But to your point, Tones, we should be able to play out of these situations. So either the support on the ball isn't fast enough or we need to figure that out ASAP.
Just be smart. Just be smart. Look at all the keepers in the world. We don't have to be Brazil or Manchester City.
But
right?
Our coach is asking and demanding that of our players. And we've seen that when Zach Steffen was still in charge.
If you are a keeper at 10 years old or 12 years old and you've been doing this your whole entire youth career and you understand exactly how you use every part of your foot and you're very comfortable technically as a keeper, great. Matt Turner just learned how to play soccer in high school.
No, I get that.
But Jimmy,
where he is exceptional as a keeper. It's absolutely exceptional where he is. But to go sit here and talk about Matt Turner trying to build out of the back like he's Ederson, let's be real. Let's be realistic. There's plenty of keepers who are adequate enough to play out of the back. But when we're talking about a certain level of difficulty, there's no need to put Matt Turner in that position. That's my point.
But Jimmy, you say our coach, and I know we got to go to a break here, but you say our coach, that's how he wants to play. But how many times in both your careers, all of ours, right, has your coach said, I want to do it this way. This is the way I want it done. But you're the guy on the field with the ball. You see something different. That's soccer IQ, right? That's like, I know he wants me to pass it over here 10 yards, but I see better option at 25 yards over here or, up the field somehow. Like, I get that's what the coach wants to do, but you got to make decisions on the field, regardless of what the coach wants to do.
Like if Tim Howard was in goal right now, would you say, all right, I want you to continue? It's like, no, that's not Timmy's game either.
Right.
You're going to do what's best for the team. He's your best keeper. So stop doing that. It's simple. Stop
yelling at me, Chuck. We're on the same page here. We're on the same page. I don't know why you're yelling at me. You're yelling at me.